And a lot of times it's really cool to see little kids standing in front of them and going, oh, Mum, look, there's a dash hound riding a unicycle and stuff like that. Oh, I don't think I've ever seen that on a fabric. I'm writing that down for my fabric line.
I'm going to buy that.
You're listening to Fussy Cutters Club podcast, a show that gives you permission to cut into the good fabric so you can make quilts you love. And now your host, who believes it's not a crime to love using novelty fabrics, Ange Wilson.
Hello, hello. Welcome. Today I'm joined by Nicole, who doesn't have a website, who's not a professional quilter, who is a very enthusiastic hobbyist and a lovely person. Nicole is at Nicship on Instagram, and you can find those details in the show notes as always. I'm interviewing Nicole today, or chatting with Nicole today, because she is one of my favourite fussy cutters. Loves a good scrappy fussy cut, loves a good novelty print, has a sense of humour to boot, is another example of the generosity found within quilters. She's just wonderful. And on top of that, she's a snake slayer, which I'm sure we'll cover. So let's get chatting. So, Nick, you're in Canberra.
I am.
Right? Well, you're in Queanbeyan, which is the sister city
moved
to
Jerrabomberra
Canberra.
now, like
Upper Queanbeyan. We lived in Jarrah for a while. It was lovely.
Yeah, I love it.
So we know each other through Canberra and quilting, obviously, and I had great pleasure of meeting you before I moved to the back of Whoop Whoop. But then you did come up here and visit for work, so that was nice. So we share a love of fussy cutting, and I like to think that a lot of the prints that I like in my stash I actually got from you. Because over the years we have both had D-stashes and we've just kind of swapped fabric between the two of us in those D-stashes. So can you tell me why you love fussy cutting?
I really love creating little stories, and this is one of the things I picked up from you, I think, Angie. I love fabric, obviously, and really enjoy finding something that's different and unusual, and I think that's what fussy cutting does, right, is you're putting together fabrics that were never meant to be together and creating a little story, and it's actually what's great fun. And I think I didn't realise what it was until I sort of came across you and learnt that fussy cutting was a thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of fun in that way. And, I mean, talking about the D-stashes, you know, you don't need a lot of fabric for fussy cutting. You just need lots of different fabric, right? So when I did my D-stash a few years ago, I actually just cut a lot of my fabrics in half and sold half of them because I didn't need all of it. And it was such fun, and it's really great to see some of those fabrics pop up in other people's quilts too that I know, you know, went from me with love to them.
Yes. And in 100 Days, obviously, a lot of your fabrics popped up. I did a scrappy version 2 years ago and a lot of your fabrics popped up in that. And now when it's on our bed, I'm like, oh, Nick gave me that bit. So I guess I want to tap on a couple of things that you mentioned. It's the little cuts. So your preference is to buy little cuts of, so like a fat 16 or a fat 8? Fat 8.
I'll probably buy like a fat quarter or 30 centimetres when I tend to buy a fabric because, you know, sometimes too the size of the print and the number of repeats you have to consider. But then, of course, I've got some of my favourite designers which I know I'm going to use a lot more, you know, like Heather Ross and, well, Lizzie House when she was doing fabrics, that I'd buy a bigger piece. But generally it's a small piece of fabric now, right? I'm much more deliberate in some of my purchasing. Considered, yes, that's the word.
So hit me. What's your favourite fabric company?
My favourite fabric company, I would have to say Dear Stella for sure.
And why is Dear Stella your favourite?
I love it because, I mean, one, they're just crazy prints, some of them. They just make no sense at all. But it's the colours, it is the the whimsy, I think, that's in a lot of their designs. Also, you can get really small little prints, right? Like really tiny that you can easily put into a block, you know, and play with it through to some quite bigger prints, right? I mean, I'm just looking at one on my wall. It's a whale with a ship on its back, which makes no sense at all, right? You know, it's just fun. It's just fun. You know, there's then all those little ice cream ones, which, you know, who doesn't want ice cream on a quilt? And like you, I also really love some of the, you know, marine and water-based fabrics as well. And they seem to do a lot of those, whether they're pirates or fish or whales or jellyfish or whatever. So they seem to be a lot of fun.
I really love Dear Stella, and they're a little bit harder to find a good stockist of Dear Stella in Australia. So I tend to every so often have a big splurge in an American store and get it sent over. But yeah, and so you and I both share we would call ourselves storytellers through our fussy cutting. And we like to work to a theme for most of our fussy cutting stuff. Now, this is really funny. When I make a block, so especially for like 100 days, I generally pick an overarching theme. And then if I'm really going to go to town with the fussy cutting, I have little stories that go with the blocks, and my nautical one especially, I was like, this is the sailor and he's off sailing and his partner's back at home and she's pining for him and they're sending love letters to each other. And so I would weave this story through the blocks. And I think you're one of the only people I've ever met that does a similar thing, if not the same thing, and understands that, because it sounds mental, right? Like, yeah, I tell myself a story while I'm cutting.
Well, I think with fussy cutting, it's overwhelming, right? If you go, I want to do a fussy cutting quilt, and there's just so much range over there, you know, that you can pull from, that if you don't have a theme or a colorway in mind, it makes it really challenging to get those blocks done. I mean, they already take forever to make because you got to pick all the fabrics. But once you have that theme in place, that helps. And whether it's a story or whether it's a colorway, like I think I've done a couple of 100 days blocks, and one of the ones, I'm just trying to think what pattern it was, Kinship, I think, I'm still in progress for. But I struggled at the beginning because I'm like, do I go rainbow or do I, you know, come up with something else? And I wasn't working. It wasn't working very well for me. But I then created one block, which was a blue, red and white block. And it had a little Paris, you know, the snow globe from Ruby Star. And it had a little dog going wee in it with his beret, because dogs wear berets. And it had some little lovebirds as well. And I made that block. I was thinking about a friend who really wants to travel to France, and making that then created that little story about, you know, him traveling to France one day. And from then I'm like, that's it. That's my theme for that whole quilt, is these colorways and creating stories in the block. And, you know, I've got a few other blocks in there. I got to travel up to Darwin, which is northern Australia, and went swimming in a waterhole that may or may not have had crocodiles in it. They said low risk, but low risk, right? Like, it's low risk. So, you know, I had one of the fabrics, I think from your store, actually, the Ruby and Star. It's probably an alligator, Florida. Not a crocodile.
Florida.
That's it. And started my block around that one to create this story about us flying to Darwin and Berry Springs. That's where we were swimming. So I've got little strawberries in there, convenient, as well as a little car. I may have been using Google Navman to get us to Berry Springs, and we ended up in someone's front yard, not actually anywhere near water, which was interesting. And, created that block. So I think when I then look at these blocks, and because I do quilt as you go as well, because that's the only way I finish a quilt. And, you know, I look at these blocks and they remind me of those stories or times that I'm trying to remember or people I'm thinking about. And it just makes it really fun and really personal, you know. And I know one year in one of the 100 blocks, I did one which had a couple of cats in it and this little girl and in a tree, and one cat was giving another cat a greasy look because it didn't like that cat in. And at that time we actually had a cat that was a stray that my eldest daughter, Kate, had started to feed and look after because she's a cat lady, right,
Yep.
through and through. And Cosmo, our old cat, wasn't having a bar of it, and he was not impressed that Pepperoni, which is what we named the new cat, of course, was on the scene. And so that was created in one of my blocks, and I had so much fun. I laughed all the way making it because
Yep.
it was like the cleverest thing ever.
Yeah.
Me.
No, I get it. I totally get it. And I had the immense pleasure of seeing, I think it was your city sampler, your Tula Pink city sampler hanging at a local
Yes.
quilt show in Canberra. And I stood in front of that quilt for so long and just enjoyed all the different fabrics and all the little vinaigrettes. Is that
Yep.
it? Vignettes?
Vignettes. Yeah.
Vinaigrette is what you put on the salad. Yeah. Vignettes in there of like little pockets of funny. And those are the quilts that I really love seeing in quilt shows, because I think they're the quilts that are more likely to encourage someone to go, oh, you know what, I'm going to make a quilt, because they invite such interest and intrigue and humour, and they elicit a response. And a lot of times it's really cool to see little kids standing in front of them and going, oh, Mum, look, there's a dash hound riding a unicycle and stuff like that. Oh, I don't think I've ever seen that on a fabric. I'm writing that down for my fabric line.
I'm going to buy that.
But you know what I mean? Like there's such pure joy in that kind of fussy cutting. And I think it doesn't take itself too seriously. You know, I have such fun finding, like when we went to Florida last year, I found in the sales area of one of the shops we went to, they had a black and white print that was all newspaper clippings from like, you know, the olden days times, but every newspaper clipping was advertising a toilet. And so like all through like it was, you know, there was plays on the word potty and crapper and all that sort of thing. And I was like, this is the best fabric ever. And I remember taking it out and showing one of the women that was with it. I'm like, look at how awesome this is. And she was just like, it's in the sale bin for a reason. And if I could have bought that whole bolt home, I would have. Like,
I know. I bought a Alexandra Henry print, which was basically sausages.
Yeah.
All different sausages. There was bratwurst and pepperoni and salami, and I freaking love that sausage fabric. I mean, it was so tasty. Everyone's like, oh, you're buying that? And I'm like, yeah, this is gold.
I know, right? And then you use it and people are like, where did you get that fabric from? And I'm like, oh, you guys all passed it over in the sales bin, but look how I've elevated it to art.
Well, I bought quite a few meters of the sausage fabric, and I used it as a backing on a quilt because that's just stupid, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
And that's the thing. I don't know who these fabric designers are, but they speak to me on a level.
They totally have a lot of sugar.
Yeah. Oh, but that's the other thing. I reckon I could do a whole quilt on just foods. So I buy a lot of fabric that just has like vegetables, confectionery, lollies, ice cream. Ice cream was a big one. Remember there's a big thing of ice cream.
I have a few. Yep.
Ruby Star's actually got a sugar collection out at the moment that's got some great stuff for fussy cutting in it. You know, like it's just there's stuff
bacon.
Bacon. My mum, when
Bacon's
we were in
on one of the quilts.
Yeah,
on the fabrics.
When we were in Florida, she bought this panel fabric where every panel is a different photo of fast food. So like fries, crinkle cut chips, beer, pizza, like just. And I remember looking at her when she was buying it and I was thinking to myself, that's where I get it from.
Oh, too good,
I know,
good.
and you're going to appreciate this. So Christy from Quiet Play is here at the moment.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. that rustling that you can hear. So yesterday we drove out to Charters Towers, which is an hour and 45 minutes from here, to see Jane, who's the editor of Make Modern, and Christy's the art director of Make Modern. And Jane lives in a town that has 12,000 people in it. It used to be a gold rush town, so it's, you know, it's a hangover from a bygone era. But Jane owns the caravan park out there. And we were having lunch. We went back and we were talking about, we're standing in Jane's office and she had this banner that she'd made. And we're like, where'd you get that fabric from? And she's like, oh, there's a really good fabric store here. And we're like, in this backwater town, there's like a really good fabric store? Right. And she's like, no, let's go. We jump in the car and go. Every fabric in that fabric store was $15 a metre. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And look what I got.
I'm so jealous.
For people.
Is that sewing machines?
That's sewing machines. I'm going to put a photo of the fabric haul.
Sewing machines.
Purple sewing machines.
Do you know how hard it is to find purple?
Oh, I know.
Like my daughter wanted a purple quilt and I was, of course, going to fussy cut it. And I have no purple fussy cut prints.
No.
Hardly any.
No.
It's awful.
Ironically, Dear Stella do, and Ray Ritchie. Ray Ritchie does.
Yes, she's beautiful, her work.
She loves a good purple. But look, Cupid's bum.
Oh, my gosh, that's so good.
And then what else do we get? I got like a heap of stuff. This is my favourite though, and I reckon you'll love this. It's English gentlemen with like penny farthings, bow ties. I'm going to put...
Oh, you're going to get some great stories out of those lads.
Yeah, I'm going to put them with my Thomas Crapper fabric.
Just what a distinguished gentleman needs.
Fits the theme. But, like, look at the scale of these roosters. They're made for a 1 inch by 1 inch. Yeah. So, and that's the thing, I think, $15 a metre, right? It was worth the 2-hour drive out there for a start. But people often ask me, when you go into a fabric store, what do you look for? There's a couple of things. I look for the 1 inch by 1 inch print scale. That's something that's going to fit. And I know you do too, because Dear Stella had those, the rock band. Was it like the Kiss?
Oh, I've got it. Yes, love it. Love it.
Them, and they had the dancing sailors, which I also loved.
Used that many, many times.
Yeah, I'm like,
and the little girl dancing in that too.
Yeah,
I think.
salsa,
like a
tango
Spanish dancer.
Yeah.
Yes.
So 1 inch by 1 inch. I look for an interesting non-stripe stripe. So something that you can use as a. So I bought these yesterday. The little.
Oh yeah,
because they're
nice.
They're like a stripe, but they're not.
Yeah,
it's not a stripe. And the Cupids were really good for this. Something with a lot of negative space, so that when you cut it in the 2 inch,
you're not cutting into something else.
Yeah,
that annoys me so much.
Oh, why doesn't someone invent something like a pen or something where you can like remove the
just paint it out.
Yep, like a remove from image kind of. And so you could just go through and pick the background fabric colour up and bleach out the picture.
So on the weekend, I was down at Queanbeyan River watching Baba perform. It was such a good night. And there was this bloke there wearing this marvellous shirt, a collared shirt with voluptuous male mermen all over it. Oh, my God.
Oh, it's the Alexander Henry fabric.
I don't know. No, it was not an Alexander Henry. It was just a different fabric. I don't know what it was. I really wanted to go and like rip it off him, right?
I was going to say, did you cut the back out?
But the problem with the mermen is they were all so close to each other that you just wouldn't have been able to cut it up, right? But it was stunning. I have no idea. It was definitely not a quilting fabric, but I really wanted it.
Well, I've just done a quick search of mermen.
Voluptuous mermen.
And quite frankly, there's more than I thought there would be. Oh, but there is some really good.
It's a new trend, I think, mermen. I've got some mermen fabric.
Have you? Well, there was.
Yeah, I'll have to find it.
Was it Dear Stella that did the Love is Love mermen?
Yes, it's probably that one, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's quite a bright blue.
There is some really good. I might just order this just for the fabric, because that's all Alexander Henry, but that one I do not know what it is. But it's got a whale wearing a little sailor's cap, which...
Oh, my gosh. That's super cute.
Yeah. I just see people don't
Stupid
appreciate
fabrics.
exactly how random fabric can make you so happy. So happy. What do you reckon?
Now,
Yeah.
yes.
No, go.
I was going to say, now when you use it, you'll be remembering us having this conversation about mermen.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the thing. The other thing I find too, and I don't know whether you're like it, is I can remember what fabric store I was in when I bought something.
I used to be much better at that, but now I'm like 50 plus, right? I'm finding that my memory is not as great.
Well, can't remember my PIN number, but I could tell you that I was in a store in Charter Towers when I bought it. Like, that's my... Can't remember when the kids' play is, but I can tell you where I was when I bought that pineapple fabric. So, is there a fabric motif that you will not pass up? Like if you walk into a store and you're like, I'm not buying any fabric, and you're really good, and then as you're leaving the store, you see you have to have it.
Yeah. Oh, look, I don't think there is a particular motif, but if it's something that I just haven't seen before, or if it's quite dated, right, then I have to buy it. But I really like to support fabric stores, so I never go into a store with the I'm not buying anything here. I try to go in with I'm going to buy at least one thing here, because, you know, we need to support our shops.
Yeah, I know. I usually
There's too many closing down.
I usually do the I'm not buying anything as I go into a store with the other person, and I'm like, but I'm going to make them buy a lot. and then I always, like yesterday, I went in there with the thing of I'm not buying any. I bought the most. Yep. And then I spent the whole time going to Christy, have you seen this? You should totally get this. You should get this. So, yeah.
I'm pleased you were able to
facilitate that.
Bring some wealth to that region.
Yeah.
Because nobody knew there was a great fabric store at Charters Towers.
I know. And that was what I said to them. I'm like, I'm popping you in my newsletter so that if anyone's out here, because like an hour and a half in Australian terms, I mean, an hour and a half in Europe, you would have gone through 6 different countries. But an hour and a half driving in Australia, that's like going to the next suburb. Yeah. So... But yeah, and Jane obviously owns the caravan park out there, so you could stay with a quilter, support a quilting store, have a great time. There was a really good pub there. We had a really nice lunch at a really lovely pub.
Great. It sounds like I need to do that next time I'm up there for work. I wonder if I could factor that into my travel time.
Didn't see any snakes, so...
That's because, they knew you'd be talking to me. They're all running a mile.
I did. So I don't like snakes, and I couldn't come at snakes on fabric. Like it was one of those things where if I saw it, it would give me like stand-up hair, hivey things. But
you were so brave.
Oh, yeah. After your last visit, and the snake incident, which we'll tell people about, I now have some snake fabric set aside for when I immortalise you in my next scrappy quilt. So Nick came to visit, and we now call her the Snake Slayer. Nick came to visit, and we were in the studio looking at all the fabric and lost in conversation. And so by the time we went to dinner, it was dark, when we walked out to the car.
It was, yeah.
And I am technically in suburbia, but we have, I don't know what you call, we're on the outskirts kind of thing. And so there's an empty allotment.
There's a river or something near you, isn't there too?
Yeah, there's a river behind our house, and then there's an empty allotment next door to us, which has a lot of native trees and everything in it. And then we have a fairly, we've consciously planted natives and cultivated a yard that encourages birds and bees and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, so there's a bit of wildlife around here. This morning I woke up, walked into our kitchen to grab a drink, looked out the window, and there was a peacock with her baby on our veranda taking shelter. So, it's not unusual to see stuff. And so I'd been telling Nick, we've just moved here. Every week we see a snake, every week. And I'm like, don't worry about it. You're fine. what was that thing that the crocodile person said? A low risk. You're in a low risk area.
Low risk of crocodile, yes.
Yep.
Low risk of snake. Yep.
Yep. So we get in the car and we drive off. And a couple of minutes into our drive, we could hear like a thud, 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 thud on the car.
Yes.
And we're like, what is that? And so I go to Nick, look, in our town, there's a high crime rate for the media says there's a high crime rate for juveniles. And sometimes what they do is they put stuff on the road and then it sticks to your car.
But you didn't tell me that.
No, I didn't.
You kind of just went, there's a high crime rate. And I'm like, oh, my God, what's going on?
And so I'm like.
So no explanation from Angie, just saying.
And then I'm like, Nick, just don't pull over there where there's kids at the bus stop. Wait a little bit. And like still. And I'm like, pull over. And I'm asking you, you know, is your steering impacted? Do you have an idea of what this is? And so we pull over. And I go to her, I'm going to get out. You lock the doors. I'm going to go have a look and see what this is.
You're so brave.
Oh, yeah, so brave. And so I get out and it's dark, right? And we're on a main road, dark, got my phone light out. And as I come around the back of the car, there's a snake in the middle of the road. And I'm like, there's a snake. Nick, there's a snake. And then we're like, you get out of the car, have a look. It's decapitated. And so I'm like, I don't know whether this snake is with us or it's there. And so I'm like, okay, get back in the car. I can't see anything wrong with the car. The wheels look fine. You know, there's nothing hanging off the car. It's good. We get back in. We drive to the restaurant. There's no more noise. Drive to the restaurant. We park in a well-lit car park because we're women and we're smart. And as we get out of the car, I start laughing. I go to Nick, look at the side of the car and there is blood splatter all over the car from the car wheel well and onto the driver's door where obviously this snake is being spun out of the wheel and smacking itself on the car. And there's like blood and so we got a photo which I will share of Nick pointing to her massacre. But we were laughing. So what we've assumed has happened is while the car's been parked, the snake's gotten into the car wheel well thing, and as we've driven off, the ventricle force thing has spun the snake out of the wheel well, and as it's been spinning out, it's been hitting the car and come out. But so that was, we laughed hard, and then Nick was forever known as the snake slayer.
That's right. I tried to get everyone back at work to start calling me Snake Slayer, but it didn't take off. So just you and me, Ange. But okay, so you did leave a little bit out of that story. She was very mysterious. She's like, no, you stay in the car, lock your doors, right? And I'm like, oh, my God, where has she got me? Like, why am I here? Anyhow, and then she comes running back to the car and she goes, oh, yeah, you can come out and you want to bring your camera with you. And I'm like, what? Anyway, so, yeah, it was pretty hilarious. And then we went up because we were just making sure the snake had no head, and a car went past and must have clipped the snake and it moved and we ran.
Yeah.
So that was the end of the snake study. But, yes, when we got to that restaurant, hilarious. So, and I'm really thankful we didn't pull over because the snake banging on the side of my door might not have been happy had I opened the door and hopped out, actually. So, and who knows what type of snake it is because neither you or I know what snakes are what. So it could have been deadly for sure.
That's my thing is I do now, I can identify a snake fairly accurately now, but at the time it was dark. The snake was dark and, like I said, busy road. We didn't know who else was hanging around, all that sort of stuff. But, yeah, it was just really funny because I'm like, no, you'll be fine. There's nothing to – we haven't seen a snake for ages. And then you kill one in the most spectacularly unusual way. But, yes.
And also had a work car, so –
that's the other funny thing.
Yeah. So I was really worried something was wrong with the car because I had no idea who I was supposed to ring if there was something wrong. So I was thankful that it ended up being what it was, though I am sorry for the snake. I didn't mean for that to happen, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
We have had a few here and we try to either let them mosey on through or we had a 3.5 metre python that we actually paid a snake catcher to come out and move, but only because it was so intent on our chickens. So, yeah, we try to do what we can to support wildlife. So I haven't invited Nick back.
This year, baby, this year. I know where you live now too. I'll just knock on the door carefully.
Yeah, when I see all the animals and everything running past their house, I'll be like, oh, Nick's coming. But yes, but things like that, right? So now I've got snake fabric. I know that there's going to come a time when I'm going to make some quilt to commemorate living here and everything, and the snake slayer will be immortalized in fabric. Aww. And I think, but that's the beautiful thing about what we do, right, is that you can be really sentimental, although I would never admit to being sentimental, and put stuff in quilts that remind you of people, and that's a really beautiful memento. Like I have this vision of me being really old in the old people's home and having my quilts and being able to memory prompt off the quilts. Yes. So, but the other thing I wanted to ask you about too is, because you do a lot of fussy cutting, but you also do a lot of work with solids. So
yes, I do.
And modern, like improv kind of free loving quilting.
Yes. Well, see, fussy cutting does take a lot of concentration. It's precious fabric, so when you cut into it, even though you're only cutting a little bit in, it's that commitment as well. It takes a lot of thinking about with your blocks. And a couple of years ago, I did a colour class with Tara Fornan when she came to Australia. I thought I knew all about colour, just so you know. I think I do okay with it. And it completely opened up my eyes. Instead of using white in a quilt, use pale yellow or pale green or pale blue or whatever. Instead of black, using navy or a burgundy, which is the most disgusting colour ever. But you know what? Works beautifully in quilts, replacing black. I hate it, but it does. And so I think that colour class has really made me really get into solids. And because one of the things I love about Tara's quilts is she uses lots of different shades of one colour in her quilt. So it creates this sort of movement and ripple in a solid quilt, right? Which is so interesting. And like you, I know you talked about in one of your other podcasts, not being able just to do one block. I really struggle with one block quilts. They bore me senseless, and that's why fussy cutting is perfect. But then with the solids, when you're using multiple colours, multiple greens, for example, in a block, you're creating that variety in the block, because then it's how does that colour relate to the colours around it, and what kind of, I don't know, swathes of colour are being created throughout the quilt that then draws your eye to different bits as well. So, yes, I'm definitely embracing solid quilts lately. I'm not a lover of half square triangles, but I have just finished a half square triangle quilt for my new granddaughter. So that's going to be fabulous. I've just got to finish quilting it now. But yeah, I do really love modern quilts. I think I get a bit bored with things, so I do jump around a lot and have multiple projects at any time. I like to have a portable project, which is, the quilt as you go for my 100 days blocks. I like to have something I can quickly, make progress on, which is what those solid quilts do for me. And I'm lucky enough to have a design wall and a sewing room now in my house, which is like my favourite room in the whole house. So, yeah, I think, I like to try everything. I've also been doing Tara's block studies program at the moment. We're into month 5 of 6. I strongly encourage people to check it out. And because what that's doing is just each month Tara will give us a colour palette and a block prompt, and then she really encourages us to play with dimension and size and layout and everything like that. So you're doing these very small little pieces where you're having a play that then might trigger a design later. And, certainly month 1 I started with solids, and then I tried with some of my pattern scraps, and that was fabulous as well. So, yeah, I like to I'm happy not to use a ruler from time to time.
Stop it, you're causing it.
I know. So one of the other things, I'm a member of the Canberra Modern Quilt Guild, but I'm also a member of the Canberra Quilters Guild as well here, which is actually the oldest quilting guild in Australia, I believe.
It is.
So that's pretty sexy. And in that group, we have lots of little special interest groups, and I manage the modern group in there, which has been a lot of fun because, I am, even though I'm 50, I'm probably still in the younger side of membership in that group, and, encouraging the ladies to not use a ruler sometimes, or to, I guess, embrace solids as well. We've been doing a lot of work recently on solids in there, giving them prompts for blocks rather than a pattern. And it's been great watching everybody take those prompts and, create something, because they all come in, they go, oh, I don't know, it's very horrible, it won't work. And I'm like, nope, stick it on the wall. And we get it up there, and then they look amazing. And people are like, I can't even find which one's my block now. So, I do love modern quilts, and I have to say the modern quilting, and particularly fussy cutting colours and fabrics, are what brought me back to quilting. I've sewn for years. Yep. And when modern quilts happened, it sort of reignited the interest, right?
Yeah.
So embrace it all.
Well, I really love about the Canberra Quilters, because I was a member of them for a while too when I was there, and the woman who taught me how to quilt actually founded Canberra Quilters. But I've never met a bunch of women who, on the outside, you would go, oh, they don't look adventurous. They don't look like they would take a risk. They look like they would be very traditional. But they do the most outlandish stuff, and they are so keen to try new stuff and do new things and encourage each other to be adventurous and all of that sort of stuff. And it was such a great way to spend an evening, is to see, like, the show and tell at the end is amazing, because they just go through and go, oh, I made this, and they pull up this massive king size quilt that's like perfect points and amazing use of fabric, and you would go, oh yeah, you just whip that up there, yeah, okay, all right. Or the exhibition where there would be on one wall some, outlandish art quilt that's, were you there the year we had the woman with the goanna in a tiara and everything? Yeah, like that. Yeah. And then you would have something from, because the Quilt Guild has members that are in Japan, and, you would get that traditional Japanese applique, hand quilted, very precise, I call it the mushroom browns, like, all of those kind of very subdued colours. And then you would get, there's always someone in the group that does a purple and red quilt. Like, like it just such a diverse range of skills and loves and fabrics and colours. And that's what gets me excited when we go, because I won't ever do all of that stuff, right? So I am very appreciative of everybody else's skill set and the colours and the fabrics and all that sort of thing. But I will not, even if the Lord gifts me with a 900-year lifespan, I'm not going to make all that stuff, right? So it's just one of those things that I think, and the work that you do in that modern group, because you've had a couple of group quilts win the group quilt section and stuff as well.
Yeah. Surprisingly, we haven't won the modern award, but that's okay. But we've won some group prizes. It's been really great. So the way we do our group quilts is we will put out an idea across the team, like, okay, what do we want to do this year? So last year the team wanted to learn a bit more about curves and ombre. And so that was what we started with, and another girl came up with a design, and so then we all did some practice blocks, and then all went all in and created a curved quilt with ombre. It wasn't quite the ombre I think we were looking for, but and we've still continued on this year a little bit with ombre, and I don't think we've quite got there with this year's quilt, but it's all blues. It's going to be fabulous. And about the time when this podcast comes out will be about when our exhibition's on, so everyone will be able to check it out.
Yep.
But it's a lot of fun, and doing a group quilt, where people have differing skill levels. People might take fabric and never bring the blocks back, so you've got to really go with what you have, as well as corralling everybody's input into the layout and the design and everything. So it's fabulous. Yeah, we just finished our quilt top on Thursday just gone for the exhibition. So it's pretty fun. It turned out much better than I expected, so that's always a positive.
Always good.
Because you just don't know.
No. So I'm expecting that there might be a modern fussy cut quilt in the future. No.
yeah, maybe. Actually, I did an applique class last year. Now, I think the applique is the devil.
Yep.
It's way too much effort. But I did a class with Kathy Doherty recently, and she has completely converted me. So I have an idea for an applique quilt. I'm not sure I'll be able to get it done in time for this one, but it will definitely be fussy cutting images into that in applique. So that would be interesting.
Is it Margaret Simpson or
Marg Simpson George?
Yeah. She does some amazing fussy cut in applique.
Yep. Yeah, and quirky, right?
Yeah.
Quirky. She finds these vintage fabrics that have bunnies or pineapples. I know we've said pineapple now a couple of times, but pineapple people don't think it should be on pizza. Should it be in a quilt? I don't know. So, but yeah, she just has random things in her quilts. They are such fun to do. And she does applique. You're right.
Yep. And she uses them in unexpected ways. So it's not like you go, oh, that's a pineapple that's a pineapple. She'll use the crown of the pineapple to make like a crown on something else, or, she'll use the pineapple. What do they call the
scales?
That's what I was going to say. But are they scales? I don't know. But the scales of the pineapple in a fish or something and so it's that ability to see more than what's on the surface, I think, with the fabrics. And there is someone else that I was thinking about that does like the Boston album style. Oh, I can see her work and everything. She does a lot of K facet.
Oh, like the Lucy Boston.
No, the Baltimore albums, Baltimore quilt album. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I've gone off on a tangent. I'll find it. It'll come to me.
It's not Lorena, is it? No. She does the Chuck Nahara ones.
No, there was – and you know what? There's going to be a quilter yelling at the podcast going, it's such and such. You're thinking of such and such. And I'll be like, 2 a.m., I'm going to wake up, just bolt upright in bed, say the quilter's name, lay back down and go to sleep, and my husband will be like, what the heck was that?
Okay, so just come back, cut into here and go, yes, I've recalled now, and just insert it into the commentary. No one will know.
Oh, it's really horrible because I can see one of her quilt. Is it Kim McLean? Kim McLean?
Oh, yes. Yeah, she does do a lot of cave work. You're right. Yeah. Beautiful, bright, fresh, yes. Yeah, with all those flowers and things. I love it.
Oh.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It is.
I think you're right. You've got it. No need to insert.
No. Kim McLean. I'll just cut out all the pre-ramble and I'll be like, check out Kim McLean. But she does fussy cutting where – like she does a lot of cave, uses a lot of cave, but she does the fussy cutting where it's not like my stuff is very much illustrative. There's a pineapple with sunglasses in the block, but she does this stripe and I'm going to use this stripe directionally and cut it out to do like the weave of this basket, or, there's a dot in the print. So I'm going to line up all the dots and in this applique shape, those dots will look like, like a flower center or something. And so, but she has such a love of color. Like seriously good love of colour. But I will put links to all of this stuff in there. And that's the other thing I think about you too, Nick, is if I was in an airport at Canberra or Sydney or Melbourne and I had to pick you out of the lineup, I would be able to find you from the front of the airport if you're at the back of the airport because you love colour. Like you're not afraid of colour.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, right? Especially because Canberra is renowned for black on black on black. I can only imagine that in the office you were a little ray of sunshine.
Yeah, I don't quite fit in. You're quite right there.
Yeah.
Though I have to say, I have a few in my team that have embraced large earrings like I. So that's wonderful to see that being created in the workplace.
That influence.
But, yes, I love it. I love it. But yeah, I think, black really drags me out a lot. Like, I mean, I love black and it's my natural go-to, right? Believe it or not. But I try to not wear black because it just is boring.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think in the last couple of years I've really embraced, and it's brave as well to really embrace colour and bold prints in clothing and big earrings and everything like that. You know, you tried a little bit here, maybe go to a quilt meeting with it on, and everyone, of course, says, oh, I love it. Can I cut that up and put it in my quilt, right? But then gradually I've started doing it, and now it's pretty normal for me at work.
Yeah.
And like last year when I did my overseas trip last year to Morocco and Italy and Greece with my friend Liz, and Liz is a navy white, black sort of colourway person, and she is embracing the colour and the earrings too. And so, you know, we were travelling in Morocco in these beautiful, beautiful locations and, yeah, taking photos with these vibrant dresses and tops. They just look magnificent. It just pops. So, yeah, so it's been, it's been a gradual transition.
But I did the same. When we did Panama last year, people were like, gee, you Australians, because it was me and my mum, and they're like, gee, you Australians really like to use colour. And I'm like, yes. And then I look back at the photos and here I am in like rainbow geometric big slashes of colour in the middle of some Mexican village. And I'm like, yeah, like look at all the colour around you in the world. Yep. Why would you not want to swim in that every day kind of thing? And so
exactly,
I'm packing for our next cruise. We're doing the transatlantic and I'm like, what colour can I take with me? How much colour can I fit in here? And I love a good earring as well. And so I'm like, what earrings can I take? Yesterday I saw Christy and she had her big geometric bees in rainbow earrings.
Oh,
they're good.
Cool.
They're good. And she's got her geometric rainbow sewing machine. She's going to release earrings in that as well. I know.
I need those earrings.
She kills
Absolutely.
me. But yeah, I mean, it's that thing of colour makes me happy. Like I can't imagine.
Yeah.
But then when I think about our house, the colour palette that we use in our house, it's very neutral undertones because that allows me to swap out the quilts regularly. And I can hang the quilts on the walls and there's no competition. But then I see Anna Maria Horner's house and I'm like, that's how you do a lot of pattern, like, and colour. And she did you see the cupboards she just recently did?
Yes, that she painted.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Know. I'm like,
who thinks of that? No one thinks to do that. Like, I'm just going to put flowers all over these cupboards. Like, amazing. I'd start and I go, oh, this is too much work. I'm going to stop. Or I hate it. But no, she keeps going and it looks fantastic.
I know. And like as she did a photo the other day and it was like a hallway into her lounge room and dining room or something like that. Like you got a couple of rooms in one snap and it's all this colour and it works. Like it just works together. And I'm like, of course you live in this amazing house. You have such an eye for colour. There it is. And so it is really funny to see how your creativity sort of ekes out into other bits and
Yep.
pieces. But yeah, it's one of those things. And I am so happy that you and I can have a chat about fabric and about colour and we can swap really rando fabric because I know you'll appreciate.
Thank you so much for that candy cane fabric where people have candy cane moustaches. I mean, of course. That was like when I saw that, I'm like, oh my God, why did I miss that fabric?
And I bought meters of that fabric because I was like, this is gold. Like, I don't know. But I think it was a Dear Stella.
I think you're right. Or Michael Miller, one of those.
Actually, I wonder if
amazing.
It was I don't tend to buy a lot of art gallery, so I'm not sure it was an art gallery. But yeah, each picture on the fabric was candy cane being used in a different way. So like a dude has a mustache with 2 candy canes. I think they're stirring soup with a candy cane. They're wrapping a present where the bow is the candy canes. A shepherd with a candy cane. Like it's all different candy cane stuff. But Japanese fabric, that's the other thing we didn't cover. Japanese fabric, because there is some really good Japanese fabric in the world.
Yes.
Good novelty fabrics. And one day I will get to Japan and I will be able to shop to my little heart's content and I will get to see the Tokyo Quilt Festival and I will be a happy little camper. But yes.
That does sound pretty blissful, actually. I'm a bit jealous of everyone heading off to QuiltCon soon.
Me too.
So that's going to be amazing.
Me too.
1 year. 1 year I'll get there. It's just so far.
Let me know what year and we'll all go as a group.
Yay.
Yeah, because Christy and I were talking about it the other day. But yeah, it would be such a good trip. And quilters are nice people. Like,
they are.
It's not like you're hanging out with a bunch of jerks. And to my knowledge...
And if you are, you can just go somewhere else, right?
And to my knowge, unlike sports fans, quilters can hold their liquor, don't take their shirts off. Don't paint big letters on them. Imagine if we were at the...
Look, that sounds like you're trying to do a challenge there, Angie.
I was just thinking, we'll be out the front. I'll be the A, you can be the M. We need to find a H. At the front of her house. Anna, we love you. With our beer drink hats on.
Yeah, classy Australians. I love it.
But yes, it is one of those things that I'm just like, there's so much possibility in what we do. And I am very happy to hear that you are brightening up a Canberra dull. Have you been watching?
Of course I have.
Nemesis?
Australian Survivor.
Oh,
no, not Nemesis. Not yet.
Oh, you got it. So on the ABC, which is our national broadcaster, they are running apparently they've been doing it for 30 years. I don't recall the last ones, but apparently they've been doing it for 30 years. And they do a documentary on leadership, the Prime Minister leadership. And the current series has Tony Abbott, Malcolm Turnbull, and Scott Morrison, and the back and forth between the leadership.
Cracker material in those ones.
But the thing that I find really interesting, one, it's making me homesick for Canberra because there's a lot of B-roll footage of like, you know, Canberra in spring and Canberra in autumn and Canberra in winter. And I'm like, that was such a lovely place to live. But lots of footage inside Parliament House, no colour. Like everyone's in black and navy, and occasionally Malcolm Turnbull's actually wearing, and I mean he's loaded, so of course he is, he's wearing a really lovely navy suit with like a peach orange tie in his interview. And I kept going, my husband, that's such a good combination. I'm writing that down. My next quilt's going to be navy, peach and white. And he's like, only you would be watching this going, gee, I love his tie and suit combo. But even the women, they're not wearing, and you're like, it's just, I couldn't imagine working in such a controlled environment for so long. And even when they go into their offices, they don't have like outlandishly bright paintings on the walls and if it was me, I'd be in there, mate, putting stuff up, hanging quilts in the corridors. Actually, I shouldn't say that. There is Australia's largest tapestry hanging in Parliament House.
Yeah, it is there, isn't it?
Yeah, the one they
Is it
commissioned.
in the dining room or something?
No, it's in the Great Hall. They commissioned it for the opening. But yeah.
Do you know what's going to be on display in March, I think? The Raja quilt.
In Canberra.
They're actually in Canberra. They're putting it out for display, which is really exciting.
Yeah. I know that it's been on display in Victoria, and there's been a couple of times when we've been to Melbourne and we've just missed it. You are lucky. That is.
Yeah. Very cool.
Take lots of photos.
Yeah. Yeah.
But are they?
So we're going to try and organise to have someone take our guild through and do a tour or something like that.
Are they hanging it at the National Museum, or are they hanging it at Parliament House or Old Parliament House?
I thought it was actually at the gallery.
Oh, okay.
At the National Gallery.
Well, it makes sense that it would be.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I'll have to have a look. But I think it's going to be pretty exciting to see. So
that's it. That is really cool. I look forward to.
You'll have to put a link into what the Raja quilt is for everybody.
Yeah, that's the thing. I go back at the end of this and then I get to spend an hour or so looking at all the nice stuff. And I start looking, I'm like, oh, we mentioned Kim McLean. Okay. And then an hour later, I'm like, oh, I should really get off Kim's Instagram and link to the Raja quilt instead. But yeah, we will put links to everything and photos to the fabrics that we've talked about, except for that dash hand on a unicycle. You'll have to wait till that comes out. But yes, but thank you, Nick, for giving up your Saturday and talking with me. I very much appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you again, Snake Slayer, when you're in the north. But yeah.
I shall be there sometime this year. It's always great to catch up with you, Angie. We never run out of things to talk about, which is interesting, isn't it? So
yeah. But
it's great.
the world is interesting, right? So
True.
Like, we haven't caught up since you went to Morocco and everything, and I have so many questions about what you saw and the pattern and the colour. And
it was like, I was really nervous going to Morocco. I can't speak the language. They're pretty strong on their religious views on things, and luckily my wardrobe fitted in appropriately there, which was fine. But it was just fantastic. Every day was even more amazing than the day before. And I also did Morocco with Jen Kingwell, like as our quilt guest person. She was absolutely adorable, you know, to hang out with Jen for, nearly 2 weeks, right? And just sit on a bus and chat to her about quilting and her business and what she's working on and getting her advice on what I'm doing. And I really didn't maximise the selfie opportunities. I'm a bit disappointed with myself, actually. So, but it was really fabulous. And, I do encourage people to go to Morocco. It's just amazing, but do it as a tour.
Yeah.
Because that way you see all the cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's there's so many quilt tours out there at the moment that you can go and see amazing parts of the world and experience things. And I think learning from how somebody else views the world is always really interesting as well. It'll be interesting to see if your journey influences the colour that you use now, if you're picking up those colours from that time away. But anyway, we better go.
Good. Yes.
But
thanks,
thank you.
Ange.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Fussy Cutters podcast. Enjoyed listening? Why not subscribe so you'll never miss an episode? Did you know the quickest way to the heart of any podcaster is to leave a review or recommend the podcast to a friend? It's true. It is. Until next week, get out there and fondle that fabric.